Name the guitarist: Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, John Petrucci, George Benson, Pat Metheny, Herman Lee, Tosin Abasi, Mick Thompson, Paul Gilbert, Nita Strauss. Every one of them played or still plays an Ibanez. That roster covers virtuoso shred, progressive metal, jazz, fusion, death metal, power metal, arena rock, and pop touring. No other guitar brand on the planet can claim that kind of range across that many genres with that many elite players. But ask the average guitarist to name the top 3 guitar brands in the world, and they will say Gibson, Fender, and then probably PRS or maybe Martin. Ibanez almost never comes up, and that gap between what Ibanez has actually done and how the guitar world perceives it is one of the strangest blind spots in the entire industry. The story starts in the 1920s in Japan, where a musical instrument trading company called Hoshinogaki was importing acoustic guitars from a Spanish workshop owned by a luthier named Salvador Ibanez. When the Spanish Civil War destroyed the Salvador Ibanez workshop in the late 1930s, Hoshinogaki lost their supply chain. Rather than find a new source, they began building their own instruments under the Ibanez brand name in the 1950s. The early guitars were inexpensive acoustic and classical instruments aimed at the Japanese domestic market. Nothing about them suggested that this company would eventually challenge the biggest names in the electric guitar world. Through the 1960s and into the 1970s, Ibanez followed the same path as Tokai, Greco, and Fernandez, building copies of popular American electric guitars. Ibanez produced Les Paul copies, Stratocaster copies, and Rickenbacker copies that were well-built and priced far below the American originals. The copies sold well in Japan, and increasingly in the American market through their distributor, Elger Instruments. The quality was high enough to attract serious players, and that was the problem. In 1977, Gibson filed a lawsuit against Elger Instruments, targeting the headstock shape on Ibanez's Les Paul copies. The open-book headstock design was close enough to Gibson's trademarked shape that Gibson's legal team argued it constituted trademark infringement. The case was eventually settled, but the message was unmistakable. Ibanez could not keep building guitars that looked like Gibson's. This is where the story splits from every other Japanese guitar maker of the era. Tokai modified their headstock shape and kept building Les Paul copies. Greco did the same. Fernandez adjusted a few cosmetic details and continued producing Fender-style instruments. These companies survived the lawsuit era by making the minimum changes necessary to avoid further legal action while staying in the copy business. Ibanez did something completely different. They stopped copying entirely. The legal pressure from Gibson forced Ibanez into a creative corner that turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to the company. Instead of tweaking headstock shapes and continuing to ride on American designs, Ibanez started from scratch. The result was the Roadstar series in 1983, the first electric guitar line that was entirely original to Ibanez. The Roadstar featured a sleek body shape with deeper cutaways than a Stratocaster, a thinner and flatter neck profile designed for faster playing, and a bridge system optimized for modern tremolo use. It did not look like a Gibson. It did not look like a Fender. It looked like an Ibanez. The Roadstar established the design DNA that would define the brand for the next 4 decades. Slim necks, flat fretboard radii, lightweight bodies, deep cutaway access to upper frets. Every Ibanez electric guitar built since 1983 carries the genetic code of the Roadstar, and that code was born directly from the pressure of a Gibson lawsuit. Then Steve Vai called. In the mid-1980s, Vai was looking for a guitar manufacturer willing to build an instrument that matched his ambitious specifications. He wanted a Floyd Rose tremolo with enough cavity depth for extreme upward pulls. He wanted a comfortable grip carved directly into the body. He wanted a fretboard inlay that turned the instrument into a visual performance piece. He wanted 24 frets with effortless upper register access. He approached Ibanez and they said yes to everything. The GEM 777 launched in 1987 and became one of the most iconic electric guitars of the decade. The lion's claw tremolo cavity, the monkey grip handle, the vine fretboard inlay running from the 1st fret to the 24th, everything about the GEM was excessive and intentional, and perfectly calibrated for the MTV shred era. Ibanez took the GEM formula, simplified it slightly, and released the RG series as a mass-market Superstrat that anyone could afford. The RG became the best-selling Superstrat in guitar history, and it remains in production today, nearly 4 decades later. Joe Satriani joined the Ibanez roster with the JS series, giving the brand a second flagship signature model that leaned more toward melodic rock and blues-influenced shred. Between Vai and Satriani, Ibanez had the 2 most commercially successful instrumental rock guitarists of the era as exclusive endorsers. Gibson had Jimmy Page and Slash, Fender had Hendrix and Clapton, Ibanez had Vai and Satriani. The endorser credibility was equivalent. The brand perception was not. But the single most important thing Ibanez has ever done is something that reshaped the electric guitar as an instrument. In 1990, Ibanez built the Universe 7-string electric guitar in collaboration with Steve Vai. It was the first commercially produced 7-string electric guitar in history. The additional low B string opened a register below the standard 6-string range. And while Vai used it for experimental compositions and atmospheric textures, the players who turned the 7-string into a cultural force were completely different. If you are finding this compelling, hit subscribe. We cover the hidden stories behind guitar brands and the gear that shaped music history every week. Now let us talk about why that 7th string changed everything. In the mid-1990s, a band from Bakersfield, California called Korn picked up Ibanez 7-string guitars, detuned them to A, and invented a sound so heavy and so sonically distinct that it launched an entire genre. Nu metal does not exist without the Ibanez 7-string. The extended low-end range that defined Korn, Limp Bizkit, and dozens of bands that followed was only possible because Ibanez had the foresight to build a production instrument with an extra string 5 years before the market knew it needed one. The extended range revolution did not stop at 7 strings. Meshuggah, the Swedish metal band, whose rhythmic complexity influenced an entire generation of progressive and gent guitarists, pushed Ibanez to build production 8-string guitars. By 2007, the Ibanez RG2228 became one of the first mass-produced 8-string electric guitars, and the extended range market exploded from there. Today, companies like Strandberg, Kieser, Aristides, and Jackson all build 7- and 8-string instruments. Every one of them is operating in a market category that Ibanez created from scratch. No other guitar manufacturer can claim they invented an entirely new class of instrument. Gibson created the archtop, but the archtop was an evolution of existing acoustic guitar design. Fender created the solid body production guitar, and that claim is legitimate. Ibanez created extended range electric guitar as a commercial category. That innovation deserves to be ranked alongside anything Gibson or Fender has done. And then there is the manufacturing quality that almost nobody outside the Ibanez community talks about. The Prestige series, built at the Fuji Gengaki factory in Matsumoto, Japan, represents some of the finest production guitar craftsmanship on the planet. Prestige instruments feature fret edge treatment, where every fret end is individually filed and rounded, so that running your hand along the neck edge feels seamless. The all-access neck joint, Ibanez's proprietary contoured heel design, provides upper fret access that no bolt-on neck Gibson or Fender can match. Fretboards are hand-rolled at the edges for playing comfort. The J Custom line sits above Prestige as the flagship tier, using exotic figured maple tops, hand-selected tone woods, and finishing work that rivals anything coming out of the Gibson Custom Shop or the Fender Custom Shop in Corona, California. A J Custom RG costs roughly $2,500 to $3,000. A comparable Gibson Custom Shop Les Paul costs $4,000 to $6,000. A Fender Custom Shop Stratocaster runs $3,500 to $5,000. The Ibanez is built to the same standard or higher, and it costs significantly less. This is where the cultural bias becomes impossible to ignore. When PRS entered the market in 1985 with premium American-made guitars that challenged Gibson and Fender on quality, the guitar world responded with respect. PRS was treated as a legitimate third option, a boutique challenger earning its place. When Ibanez delivered the same quality from the Fujigen factory in Japan, the guitar world treated it as something different, something lesser. The word that kept coming up in guitar shop conversations and forum threads was shred guitar, as if Ibanez instruments were only legitimate for one style of playing. That genre pigeonhole is one of the most inaccurate labels in the guitar world. George Benson has played Ibanez guitars for over 4 decades, and he is one of the most acclaimed jazz guitarists in history. Pat Metheny played an Ibanez PM series guitar through some of the most sophisticated jazz fusion recordings ever made. John Schofield played an Ibanez Artist series in the 1980s. Andy Timmons uses an Ibanez 8 signature model for blues, rock, and pop session work. Nita Strauss tours arenas with Alice Cooper, playing an Ibanez Jiva. These are not shred guitarists playing shred music on shred instruments. These are world-class musicians across multiple genres choosing Ibanez because the instruments are world-class. But the perception never caught up. A guitarist playing a Gibson Les Paul at a blues jam is treated as someone who understands tradition. A guitarist playing a Fender Telecaster in a country band is treated as authentic. A guitarist playing an Ibanez RG at the same gig gets a raised eyebrow. The instrument is not the problem. The prejudice is the problem. The honest tally of Ibanez's contribution to the electric guitar industry is staggering when you lay it out in sequence. They survived a Gibson lawsuit by innovating their way out of the copy business entirely. They built the most successful Superstrat design in history with the RG. They created the production 7-string and 8-string guitar categories from nothing. They delivered prestige and J Custom instruments that compete with the finest American workshops at lower prices. They built elite signature models for players across jazz, fusion, metal, rock, and pop. They partnered with Fujigen Gaki, one of the most precise guitar factories on the planet, for their premium instruments. Any other brand with that resume would be talked about as a top 3 guitar company without hesitation. Ibanez has that resume, and the guitar world still treats it as a specialty brand for fast players who wear black t-shirts. The gap between what Ibanez has actually accomplished and how the industry positions it is not a matter of quality or innovation. It is a matter of origin bias and genre prejudice. American heritage sells a narrative. Japanese precision does not carry the same romantic weight, even when the instruments are objectively comparable or superior. And the shred label, applied in the 1980s and never fully removed, has narrowed the perception of a brand that is one of the most versatile and innovative guitar manufacturers in the world. Ibanez does not need a comeback. It needs a reappraisal. And any guitarist who picks up a Prestige RG or a J Custom and plays it, honestly will struggle to explain why this brand sits below Gibson and Fender in the conversation. The instruments already earned the spot. The culture just has not caught up yet.